Well, did you guys just want to start with a bit of an update of where things are at and what operations are looking like this morning?
Operations are progressing this morning. We're continuing with the rescue operation. We still have live animals that are viable for rescue. So that's where our focus will be today, but at the same time we're starting initial efforts with collection for disposal of carcasses.
And we heard yesterday that there was around 30 still alive on the sandbar. Does that sort of case?
Look, there may be that number still alive. We've prioritised the animals this morning and we believe that there are around 20 that are viable in terms of retrieving them off the sandbar and releasing them out to sea.
Is that partly due to more whales being rescued yesterday after we had a chat with you?
It probably is. That is part of the picture. Certainly yesterday the final tally was great. We've now retrieved 70 whales or thereabouts off the sandbar and released them out to sea.
And how did that number jump from 50 to 70? Is that just in the last bit of daylight hours?
Look, we've been getting more efficient as we've gone along, but it's also just the transference of information. So we've been giving the best information that we've had at any point in time. And it wasn't until we did the final tally when we'd done all of the debriefs of the crews coming back in last night that we had that final number and realised that there was actually a greater number than we, sort of been anticipating.
And I heard earlier this week you'd been tagging the whales on Tuesday with a few that did re-beach. Is that still an issue, than re-beaching?
I think re-beaching is always a concern. There's always a risk there, but to date we seem to have only had the first few that have re-beached, but they are tagged, so if that starts to occur, we'll pick it up pretty quickly.
Now, my maths is a little bit bad, so just to clarify, yesterday you said that 50 had been rescued, 25 the day before, 25 yesterday, and that there was 30 still alive. So now you're saying that there's 70 that have been rescued. So that means that there's more, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just sort of figuring out where those numbers come from.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, at any point in time, it really is an estimate. I don't know who's been up in an aircraft and had a look at the site, but it is a complex site. Many of the whales are submerged, and so we've made our best efforts to do the counts. When it comes to assessing which animals are alive and which animals are dead, it is difficult. We certainly do our best to provide the most accurate numbers that we can, but at the end of the day, they are estimates. But we're still saying that the total number of animals involved is around 470. I think there will be a bit of ebb and flow with the total number of dead, the total that we've retrieved and released, and we're now saying that we've got about 20 viable animals that we think have the strength to be successfully released.
How is the welfare of those animals? We heard yesterday a little bit about the potential for euthanasia of some of those. Is that something that you're considering?
Chris?
Yeah, so it's definitely something we've always got in the back of our mind as we're planning. We're actually considering euthanasia at this very moment with a small number of animals that we've attempted release and it hasn't been successful. So that's based purely on animal welfare grounds. We've had a vet assess them and we're looking to carry that out this morning. So it's always something in the back of our minds. We go to it only when needed, but in this case we do have a small number that we will euthanize for animal welfare reasons.
A small number, can you give us an exact number?
At the moment we're looking at 4.
With the 70 rescued, are those all considered successful rescues, or all they were the 70 that was towed out of the harbour?
So the 70 animals that have been refloated and released, we're confident that most of those animals have got away. Once they get out into deeper water, they're very hard to keep track of. So really our only measure of whether that was successful or not is whether we do see those tagged animals back on the beach at some stage. At this stage, as Nic mentioned, we haven't seen many at all back on the beach, but we will pick that up quite quickly if it does occur.
In terms of tracking those tagged animals, so someone looking at a computer screen and checking where they're going, is that how that works?
No, so when we talk about tag animals, it's simply a mark on the animal. So it's a very small plastic fish tag that's inserted into the animal. It doesn't hurt the animal at all, but it does allow us to keep track of that. So it's just a mark that we can check if we do see an animal on a beach.
And just back to that, the euthanasia of those 4 whales. You mentioned that's about animal welfare reasons. Can you talk us through what those animals are going through at the moment?
Yeah, so these are animals that we've given them a chance. We've tried to release them. They haven't done well, and that's purely due to the situation they found themselves in. And so the next stage is can we successfully release those animals again? In this case, we don't think that's a viable option. They're not doing well, and so best, most humane course of action is to euthanize in this case.
And I guess once the rescue operation is complete, are you expecting that to be completed within the next 24 hours, the rescue of those last 20?
I would expect so. I think beyond the next 24 hours, any remaining animals that are alive will be less viable.
How are discussions going around the disposal of the carcasses, and what options are you looking at?
Look, we're starting to form up a plan. Our preference is for disposal at sea. We're still taking expert advice as to exactly where the drop-off point may be. Our focus in the next few days will be trying to contain the spread of carcasses because as the whales start to decompose, they will bloat and float, and with wind and tide, they'll drift. So amongst other things, they'll present a significant navigation hazard if we don't contain them. So the strategy is going to be to collect, contain, and then when weather and tide and current conditions are suitable, we'll take them out to sea and release.
What other impacts might those carcasses have on the harbour in terms of, will they attract other fish, or, are there any other impacts?
Certainly there could be. They could attract predators. So such as sharks, that's always a risk. They also can present environmental health issues because with drifting they could easily end up in the harbour here or over at Mill Bay. So there are environmental health issues, and also the decomposition of such a large number of animals could actually affect oxygen levels in parts of the harbour, which could affect the marine life in those places.
How long do you expect it to take to dispose of all 380 carcasses?
We'd like to do it as quickly as possible, but unfortunately we're going to have the right weather conditions, tide and current conditions, and so it is probably going to take several days. So we're getting really good assistance from the aquaculture industry in terms of collection and containment of the carcasses, and I should add that they've been great in providing assistance to date with the rescue. But we've also got the Tasport's barge Calandra coming down from Devonport. That'll get here as soon as it can. That's likely to be Monday, and that'll be the main vessel used to transport the whales out to sea.
There's been some chatter on social media about a submarine being off the west coast and questions over whether that's contributed to the whales stranding here. Have you heard anything about a submarine off the coast and how that's contributed?
No, I wouldn't know about a submarine off the coast.
If there was a submarine off the coast, could that contribute to what we've seen here?
I doubt it, but I'm not an expert on submarines by any means.
Is it likely that they're claimed for food?
Chris?
Look, that's always a possibility that food is brought them close to the coast. So this is a species that forages typically in deeper waters off the shelf edge. So something's attracted them close to the coast and possibly into the harbour deliberately, and that's most likely to be food. So yeah, that's a strong possibility.
Are you still trying to figure out why they've come in here?
Yeah, so that's always in the back of our mind. Why has this occurred? To be honest, we're unlikely to really finalise a theory there. But most likely scenario is that something's brought them close to the coast, most likely to be food, and they've got themselves into trouble in this really complex environment.
How are volunteers faring? It's been 3 days now. Are they getting a bit fatigued?
I think everybody involved in the event is getting fatigued, and particularly those out on site who are doing the hard physical yakka in cold water. They are getting fatigued, but they're bearing up well under the pressure, and we're doing our best to look after their welfare and their safety. Will you be
bringing in more volunteers to kind of relieve the ones that are here?
We're constantly assessing our need for resources, be it volunteers, DPIPWE staff, or assistance from industry or other areas. But at this stage, I'd say if the rescue effort starts to tail off after today, our need for volunteers is going to reduce significantly.
How many people do you think will need to be involved in the disposal of carcasses?
Look, that's a bit uncertain. I would imagine we'll have a number of small boats doing the collection, other boats helping with whatever method we settle on for containment. We'll have the crew on the Tasport barge, Calandra. We'll certainly have DPIPWE staff supervising that operation. But once we move into that phase, there won't be volunteers involved.
And how are you both feeling?
Tired?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah. But emotionally, okay?
Yeah, look, certainly my focus is on doing the best job we can for this event. So our focus has been strongly on the rescue, which has been prioritised, and now it's looking ahead to collection and disposal of carcasses, so that the community can feel safe and the harbour can be protected environmentally, socially, economically, yeah. Yes, I do. I think we've absolutely had the resources that we need. We've been asked this question a number of times, but given the complexity of the site we've been dealing with, if we'd had more resource, it wouldn't have enabled us to do more. The site simply couldn't have coped with more. So we've definitely had all that we've been able to cope with and use.
And is that the same case with volunteers?
Yes, it is. We've steadily scaled up the number of volunteers we've had. And once again, we've had enough, and we've certainly had a whole bunch of others that have been on standby, and if we'd needed them, we could have easily called them in. So we've had over 30 volunteers involved for the last 2 or 3 days.
Thank you. And the 30, that's just now. Yeah. So the 30, that's just Parks and Wildlife, because then there's all like the 20.
No, it's people from Marine Conservation Branch. It's people from Parks and Wildlife, and a couple of other areas of DPIPWE as well.
Yeah.
So it is a tenure-blind event from a DPIPWE perspective. It's a DPIPWE led event, not a Parks and Wildlife led event, even though I'm from Parks and Wildlife.